What do you think of this business idea? A decentralized venture capital fund, which simply means a company that gathers money from many people and then uses this money to invest in startups and small companies that need funding. There is no CEO or top management positions, and the people who invested their money get to vote on which companies to invest in. When these companies make any profits, they get distributed among the investors. And the best part is that all of this is done automatically with code, with no to very little human intervention. Now, you may be thinking that this sounds like a good idea that could actually work. Well, that was the idea behind the DAO, which was the first DAO ever launched in April 2016. At first, the DAO was a great success, and they raised more than $150 million from more than 11,000 investors. The investors could participate by buying DAO tokens, which gave their holder the right to vote on which companies the DAO should invest in, and also the ability to make profits through dividends from these companies. After 3 months from launch, the DAO had about 14% of all circulating Ethereum at that time, which was about $250 million. But then it got hacked. Some hackers managed to find a vulnerability in the DAO's code, and it allowed them to steal about $60 million worth of Ethereum. Of course, investors were very mad. So the Ethereum community was discussing how they can fix this and restore the stolen coins. And after some long debates, Vitalik Buterin proposed implementing a hard fork to the Ethereum blockchain. This simply means rolling back or restoring an older version of the Ethereum blockchain before the hack where the money is still in the DAO. Of course, not all miners agreed to this, as blockchains should not be reversed, but still, the majority did, so the Ethereum blockchain went back in history to a time before the hack, and the money was returned to the investors, and the DAO was eventually shut down. Some miners were still refusing to accept this fork and continued to mine on the old blockchain. This resulted in a different separate blockchain, which we now know as the Ethereum Classic. On this chain, the hackers still had 3.6 million Ethereum Classic coins, which were worth $7 million shortly after the fork. Welcome to Cryptobie, where we explain cryptocurrencies and DeFi topics in the most simple and beginner-friendly way. In this video, you will know what is a DAO and how it actually works, some examples of well-known DAOs, and finally, we will talk about some of the risks of DAOs, so let's get started. So, what is a DAO? Let's start with the name. The term DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. This simply means an organization that is owned and managed by a group of people, which are the DAO members. Unlike traditional organizations, where the company is only managed by a CEO and some high-level executives, in a DAO, there is no central authority. Anyone can be a DAO member, and then can suggest and vote on decisions or necessary changes. That is why it is called a decentralized organization. Now let's get to the autonomous part. The word autonomous means self-governing, which simply means having the ability to make your own decisions without the need for any higher authority. So, a DAO is an organization that can make its own decisions without the need for a CEO or any other executives. When a decision is agreed upon by the DAO members, it gets executed automatically through smart contracts. Don't be confused with the name. Smart contracts are simply lines of code that are executed automatically once a specific condition is met. For example, the smart contract may be programmed to send you 500 tokens if 50% or more of the DAO members agree on this. The condition here is the agreement of 50% or more of the DAO members. When that happens, the tokens are sent automatically to you. Without the need to wait for the approval from anybody, it automatically gets executed. You may now be wondering, how can you join a DAO? Well, in most cases, you can join a DAO by buying the token of the DAO. This gives you the right to suggest and vote on decisions, as well as any other benefits the members may have, such as dividends in the case of investment DAOs, like the DAO we talked about at the beginning. Also, if the DAO you join is a DAO that develops a protocol or an application, and this protocol or application actually succeeds, then, in most cases, the price of the DAO token will rise, as it gives its holder the right to manage a successful protocol, which is something very valuable for some people. It is important to understand here that the sale of these tokens is actually how a DAO raises money for its operations. In some cases, you may be able to join a DAO and participate in decision-making by owning an NFT, like what happens in the Decentraland DAO. Another difference between a DAO and a traditional organization is that it is fairly easy to launch a DAO compared to launching a traditional organization, as launching a traditional organization requires filling a lot of legal documents that take a lot of time. Many of these papers are not needed when launching a DAO. Still, that doesn't mean that DAOs are illegal. Actually, many DAOs are registered as limited liability corporations in some countries. But still, launching a DAO is much easier than forming a traditional organization. Actually, there are some platforms like Aragon or Colony that do everything and allow you to launch a DAO in less than 10 minutes. Now, before we get to how a DAO actually works, let's talk about the benefits of launching or joining a DAO. So, first of all, like what we said, in a DAO, the decision-making is decentralized. Anyone can join the DAO and suggest or vote on decisions. So, there is no CEO or group of board members controlling the organization however they want, like what happens in traditional organizations. Another benefit of launching or joining a DAO is that it is trustless. You only need to trust the code of the DAO, which you can check easily for yourself if you have the knowledge to do it, or you can read the auditing report from the company that audited the code. So you don't have to trust anyone with your money. The code will work exactly like how it was programmed. As for the other DAO members, they are incentivized to vote for decisions that are good for the DAO, as they have tokens and they wouldn't want to lose their money if they took bad decisions. Finally, we have transparency. All the proposals, votes, and decisions of the DAO are visible to the public. This allows any member to see what is happening exactly. Also, all the balances of coins held by the DAO in the treasury are also visible to the public on the blockchain, so the DAO members can easily track where the money is going. Before we continue, if you've been enjoying the video so far, hit the like button. As a new channel, it really helps us. Now, let's get to how a DAO actually works. So let's start with how a DAO is launched in the first place. So the launching process begins with a group of people with a common goal, like funding Black women projects, for example, or a group of developers who launched a successful application or protocol and they want to give users control of the project. So once a group is gathered, they need to clearly define the goals of their DAO and what they are trying to achieve, so they can convince investors to join them. They also work on many other details, such as the token sale and how the raised money will be allocated. Once they work all these details out, they need to write the smart contracts, which will include all the DAO rules and how it will be managed. So it will include details like how can somebody join the DAO, who can suggest new changes, how many votes does each member get. For example, in the smart contract, it can be stated that a suggestion or a proposal needs to get voted on by 30% of all tokens to be accepted and executed. Or a member has to have 50,000 tokens to be able to suggest new decisions or changes. This may be done to prevent bots from spamming the DAO with proposals. After the smart contracts have been created, now the founding team has to get funding for their DAO, and in most cases, this is done through the sale of tokens. So the founding team will create the DAO token and sell some of its total supply to the interested investors, and they will keep some of the tokens to support the DAO's operations on long term. So these tokens will be used to pay for things like marketing campaigns, salaries, and community rewards or benefits. The tokens will be kept in the DAO's treasury, which in most cases is a multi-signature wallet. We have a full detailed video about multi-signature wallets, but for now, it is simply a wallet that requires 2 or more signatures to approve a transaction. For example, a wallet may be set up with 3 private keys, your private key, Jessica's private key, and John's private key. To send any coins from this wallet, any 2 out of the 3 of you need to approve the transaction. So no one can steal the coins in the wallet without the approval of you or the other member. This is known as a 2 out of 3 wallet. In most DAOs, the treasury is a multi-signature wallet setup with the private keys of trusted members. So it can be a 3 out of 5 wallet, or a 7 out of 9 wallet, or many other setups. This is done to prevent a member or 2 from controlling the treasury and the coins in it. Now, after all these steps, the smart contracts are deployed on a blockchain, which is Ethereum in most cases. An important point to know here is that a DAO can be launched on any blockchain that supports smart contracts, not just Ethereum. So, for example, you can launch a DAO on Solana, Tezos, Stellar, Algorand, or any other blockchain that supports smart contracts. After the smart contracts are deployed on a blockchain, the founding team can't control the DAO or change anything anymore. Now the DAO can only be managed through proposals and votes by the token holders. So to sum this part up before we move on, a DAO is simply composed of smart contracts, a token, a treasury, and of course its members or its community. Now you may be wondering, After the launch, who works in the DAO? Any traditional company has its employees. So what happens in a DAO? Well, that is something where each DAO is different. Some DAOs have multiple teams, so you may find a development team, a marketing team, and a community and partnerships team. In each of these teams, you may find paid and unpaid contributors. Paid contributors are people who make money from their part-time or full-time work in the DAO, and the money they get paid comes from the DAO's treasury. These contributors are free to choose the projects they want to work on, and they can work at more than one DAO at the same time. Unpaid contributors, on the other hand, are people who are genuinely interested in the project and want to help it succeed. So they help and do tasks without any compensation. Sometimes, when an unpaid contributor has been helping the DAO for a while, he may get offered a part-time or a full-time job, so he becomes a paid contributor. Other than these contributors, you may also find bounties. Bounties are small paid tasks that anyone can do and get rewarded for doing them. A bounty can be editing a video, designing a webpage, or making a graphic design. But whatever it is, it has to be voted on and approved by the token holders. So that is generally how work is done in most DAOs. Now let's say to have decisions are made. So, like what we said, members of the DAO can suggest and vote on decisions or changes to the DAO. But the thing here is that voting on every proposal can cost the DAO members a lot of gas fees. So, to avoid wasting time and gas fees on bad proposals, there is an off-chain governance process. This simply means that any new proposal is first discussed by the DAO members on forums or social media channels like Telegram or Discord. So they will talk with each other to discuss and edit the proposal until they reach a final good version, and then they may make polls to see what everybody thinks about the proposal. Voting in these polls is free, and anybody can vote in these polls, even if they don't hold any tokens, but the results of these polls don't actually impact the DAO as the voting is done on forums, not on the blockchain. When a poll for a proposal gets a lot of support from the DAO's community, it advances to the next level and gets put for a vote on the blockchain. Voting here costs gas fees, and only the token holders can vote. Now, an important point to understand here is that the way of determining the result of a vote can be different from one DAO to another. Some DAOs require a minimum percentage of tokens to be used in voting for a specific decision. For example, a DAO may require 20% of all available tokens to be used in voting for a decision or a vote option. If this decision or option is voted on using 20% or more of all available tokens, then it gets accepted and executed by the DAO. But if a very small percentage of tokens were used in the vote and no decision was voted on by 20% or more of all tokens, then the proposal fails and nothing changes in the DAO. This mechanism is known as token-based quorum voting, and it is used to encourage participation and to ensure that it is relatively hard to pass on bad proposals. Examples of DAOs that use this mechanism are Lido and Decentraland. Now, let's see another voting mechanism called the relative majority. Here, there is no minimum percentage of tokens required. A decision or an option needs to only win the vote to be accepted and executed. This mechanism is used by the Raid Guild DAO, and it is used to make voting more simple and to save gas fees. But the problem here is that it can allow bad or harmful proposals to pass if the community is not actively monitoring and participating in governance. So, these were two very popular voting mechanisms, but there are other more complex mechanisms like the quadratic voting, the reputation-based voting, and the holographic consensus, but they can be a topic for another video. Now, let's see some examples of DAOs. Here, we will talk about Uniswap and Decentraland. So, Uniswap is a decentralized exchange that allows people to swap their tokens. For example, you may have Tether and you want to buy Ethereum. So, you can go to Uniswap and swap some of your Tether for Ethereum. Holders of the Uni token can suggest and vote on any new features or changes they want, like adding support for new blockchains or raising the swap fees. Each token you hold gives you one vote, so the more tokens you have, the higher your voting power. To create a proposal, you need to have 2.5 million Uni tokens delegated to you, which simply means other token holders trusting you and letting you use their tokens to make or vote on proposals. For a proposal to be accepted and executed on Uniswap, at least 40 million Uni tokens have to be used in voting for this proposal. So you may hear that a proposal has to get 40 million yes Uni votes to be accepted and executed. Another example of DAOs is Decentraland. Decentraland is an online game or virtual world where you can buy and own names, clothing, buildings, and land parcels. Here, the DAO members get voting power not only from the monotokens, but also from any names, land, and buildings they own. Each monotoken gives its holder 1 voting power, and each name gives 100 voting power, and any land parcel you own gives you 2,000 voting power. So for example, if you have a name and 200 monotokens, then you have 300 voting power that you can use in voting on any new features or changes to Decentraland. For a proposal to be accepted and executed on Decentraland, 6 million voting power have to be used in voting for it. By now, the video is already too long, but before we end it, let's quickly talk about some risks of DAOs. So at the most basic level, a DAO is just some lines of code, and any code can have bugs and vulnerabilities that can be exploited by the hackers to steal the coins in the treasury, just like what happened with the DAO. Another possible risk of DAOs is the centralization of decision-making when the majority of tokens are held by a small number of people. When a small number of people own the majority of the tokens, then a very small group of these people can actually pass any proposal they want, without the need for any other votes from the other DAO members. That is why some DAOs are using other voting mechanisms like the quadratic voting and the reputation-based voting, but we will keep them to another video. If you are still watching until this point in the video, we really want to thank you, and we hope you learned what you need to know about DAOs and how they work. And if you liked our video and want to reward our hard work, hit the like button, let us know in the comments if you have any questions or video ideas, and subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you don't miss our new videos. Thanks for watching.